You're listening to Real Talk with Katie Kim, where we talk about building smarter, not riskier, and bringing strategy and soul back to the business of development. Today, I'm sitting down with someone who's been a game changer for me and how I think about collaboration and design, Ellen Spencer. She's an architect, a project manager, and one of the few people I trust to walk into a building with me and see not just what it is, but what it could be. In this episode, we pull back the curtain on how developers and architects can actually work together without ego, how to build teams that protect the vision, the budget, and the bottom line. We talk about Keller Station, RFP war stories, and yes, how the best cup of coffee in the city started with a design conversation and a little bit of matchmaking. If you've ever wondered how to hire the right architect, how to keep your project from derailing, or how to build with clarity and collaboration, this one's for you. Let's go. Today is an episode that I've been excited about for a long time. I'm sitting down with Ellen Spencer, formerly known to me as Ellen Adams, an architect who I trust deeply and who's been a critical part of many of the most intentional developments that we've done, urban infill work, and really changing the game while meeting the client's needs and their business. So we're pulling back the curtain on how we structure design build teams, why collaboration, not ego, is everything in development, and how to navigate the architect speak or architect language that can derail your vision if you don't ask the right questions. This is for every business owner or investor who's ever said, I don't want a building that looks great on paper, but doesn't work in practice. So get ready to think differently about how you hire, build, and lead your development team. Hello, Ellen. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you, Katie, for having me on today.
So excited. I'm so excited. So we were starting to talk offline and it was like, okay, when are we hitting the record button? When are we started? So our energy is high already, listeners. And I'm going to
Absolutely.
give a second. And I want Ellen, tell our listeners a little bit about your history, your background, what you're doing today, and all the details before we just jump back in.
Yeah, absolutely. So first and foremost, I'm an architect, proud and loud about it. She mentioned egos. All architects have a little bit of an ego, but working with an architect and knowing how they actually manage that to then give a successful client and a successful project is what we will definitely be talking about too. So first and foremost, I'm an architect, but at my current role, I'm actually more in project management and the oversight of it all, understanding macro to micro, how we get the job done right and have successful clients. So happy to be here.
Awesome. And you're a mom, right?
I am a mom.
Yeah.
Yes. So a
Love
lot has changed in the last, 5 years of my life. So formerly Ellen Adams, now Ellen Spencer. And then shortly after we got married, my husband decided to find a new job. So we also moved, which was kind of in line. You moved, I moved. So
Yep.
now we no longer are doing too many things together in the Peoria area, although that's where we started. So now I sit outside of St. Louis and I work at a company called Jacobs. So still a very large, actually 45,000 people worldwide.
Oh, wow.
Huge company. Yeah. Architecture and engineering firm and loving it. So yes.
Awesome. Now, for the listener that doesn't know, talk a little bit about what being a project manager at an architectural firm means versus being an architect at an architectural firm.
Oh, well, that's tricky because Jacobs is so large that they love to compartmentalize job tasks because we work on such giant projects that we need a lot of time and energy spent individually. So at my former firm, I wore all sorts of hats. Katie just recently posted about all the different hats that we wear, and I'm definitely known to that. I don't know, I know that as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So at the old firm, I mean, being an architect, you end up inevitably being the project manager, so to speak, because you have a well-rounded understanding of the project. And so you have to corral all the engineers, you have to talk to the clients, you have to make sure the finances and the schedule's on point. Now at Jacobs, because again, the size of projects that we work on are just so big that they kind of pull out those multiple hats so that you're not wearing 10 different ones. You can wear 2 to 3, which is really nice. And so on the project management side, I'm still client contact. That's the part that I love. I don't want to lose sight of that at all. But we have specific design principles. We have the production team. We have technical experts, subject matter experts as well in various things that we need to complete on the project. And so I went from doing this many things to this many things. It's an adjustment for sure.
Yeah.
yeah, I twiddle my thumbs a lot. I'm like, okay, you can give me more because I'm just so used to doing more.
Yeah.
But it's coming, I'm sure, and we'll get there. So yes, I tend more to have the client relationships and make sure that the project stays on budget and schedule and that oversight to make sure that everybody's performing the way that they should as a project manager. So,
Yes. And I love that you talked about when you started your career, you were with a smaller firm that you were doing a lot of other things. And I love that for people who are just starting off in their field, their passion is like learn as much as you can from all the different roles and tasks in the job, and then start to like niche down on what really,
oh,
really
absolutely.
joy and what you like. And I think of
Yes.
Rob, and we need to have Rob on here. He may be the
Oh,
first man that comes on. But
yes.
he wasn't stamped. And so I want to talk about that first because our sealed. How do you guys say it? Like I say you don't have your stamp,
Sealed.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, stamp sealed. Yeah. It's all the same thing. He wasn't licensed.
He wasn't licensed. So you can be an architect from like finishing the school part of it, right? And doing the what I would call like your internship, if you will. But then
Yes.
you still have to sit for, is it four tests that you have to take to get your
They've
stamp?
recently changed it. It's now five.
Of course.
No, actually, shoot, I took five because I was in the overlap. I think it's now six,
Okay. Wow.
maybe
So
even seven. Gosh, it's been so long.
yeah.
So I don't even know. But I think it's seven. And because I was between versions, there was just a lot of overlap in the test content. And so I think I got away with five. But
Nice.
it's a handful. It is not
Yeah.
easy to be an architect.
Yeah. So when somebody has their seal or their stamp,
Yes.
it means that they have passed all those tests, six,
Yes.
five, seven, whatever we're talking about. And they're pretty intense, right? I mean, they're not like, I mean, they're harder than, some people say the bar or something like that. Like it's a pretty big process. And so that's always the differentiator when I'm talking to people, be like, okay, do you have your seal? Do you have your stamp? Like, can you put this project all the way through? Because there are
Yes.
architects that can design a building, right? Draw it out, whatever you want to say now, CAD, whatever, and BIM, and not be able to seal it or stamp it for permitting, right? And sometimes you don't need that. Some municipalities don't need that.
Yes. Right.
But you always want to know, like that's usually the first question is somebody sealed or somebody stamped here? Or are you what I term them in my Katie language is like designer architects, right? Like you can't really give me that construction set. And a lot of times you'll
Correct.
see that more in smaller towns. So one of the things that we were talking about this listener offline is like the first time I met Ellen, my first memory I would
Oh
say.
God.
I should say my first memory because I was thinking about Halloween and I was like, oh, we should definitely have the Nick Halloween story about the Chic building sometime. That we'll tease that one, but was when we were working on the Madison Theater RFP. And so RFP is a request for proposal. And a lot of times cities that have properties that they want to develop, maybe they own it or maybe they're partnering. And in this case, the city owned a piece of property and they were partnering with an adjacent property owner. And I will tell you, if you go into those, make sure the details of the agreement are very clear and that everybody's on board. We kind of ran up to a hiccup that they weren't. So we went in on an RFP, and usually that has a bunch of different sections of qualifications, and it has resumes. What do you want to do with this project? What do you envision? And so you really have to put the project together to get like your high level cost estimate, your high level pro forma in terms of, sources and uses, revenue. And when you're doing those types of projects, it really matters who your team is, because if you're not on the same line of like vision thinking, Ellen, I love to change the game. Like, how do we change the game with this project?
No.
How are we like, what did Katie do? Right? Like, I love that when people say, like, what did
Yeah.
you just do? I'm like, yes. Score, we won. And this project was pretty much a full city block downtown, a
Yes, it
block,
was.
maybe a block and a half away from the Civic Center, right in the entertainment district, across the street from a historic hotel, a long line of bars and questionable establishments, let's just say that way. And we started working on this. And I remember you were one of the team members. And I personally love when we get asked to bring like I don't know if Nick was an intern then or he was just starting out, but like I got the young guns and I loved it because where you guys were like, no, not enough for Katie. Like, let's go with this. So I would love to hear like when you guys step in RFP, especially even the Madison, because that where I know Caius is was like, don't put all the details in like the side, which I love because we just put uses, but like the design of it was super sexy cool. And it was marrying this like modern building. And I'll let you go into the uses if you remember. If not, I'll fill it in. But like, but the uses in the blank lot with historic Madison Theater, which was a vaudeville theater that had been, it wasn't even mothballed at that point. It was still had some internal water features at that point. And then there were bars on the other side of it. And, you know, walking into it, what do we do? How do we, and it was historically registered. Let me put that on there. So, you know, if we took it down, we couldn't have any of the incentives that we were looking to.
Right.
So from the developer side, my side, right, I'm looking at, I got to have density on the city lot to get the income and the flow and in the increment from all those incentives that we were going for to cover some of that cost. And so when we stepped into it, we really looked at like getting around the table, brainstorming, like, what do we want here? What do we do? And then you guys totally took that vision and went to town on it. So I'd love to know behind the scenes because you guys, it was like a playground every time I came over to you guys were throwing out ideas and the energy was just like fire. I loved it. That was like my favorite RFP process ever.
We're probably too bright-eyed and bushy-tailed at the time because we were starting out in our careers and probably didn't know any different.
And
But
I
yeah,
love that. Don't give me the corporate jade. Like, let's keep dreaming, people. Let's keep dreaming. Give me your intern.
yes,
I'll take it.
exactly. We came out from college where we didn't have budgets and structure, and it was just like, let's throw things out there and see what sticks.
Do it.
No,
Let's do
it
it.
was great juxtaposition too between the historical Madison Theater and then this brand new building that was then basically going to take out a parking lot. Like, what more could you ask for as a young architect designer who wants to mold it all together? I mean,
Yeah.
we literally threw everything at it.
Mm-hmm.
It was also very trendy, if I remember the renderings.
Oh yeah.
Bold colors.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Very modern structure, very sleek,
Very sleek.
and if you're watching on YouTube, we'll show the renderings of which I have to tell you, listener, we have not released these renderings publicly like ever with the project. Now, this project unfortunately did not go forward after much negotiation, and that's where
Yes.
I'm telling you is to make sure that if you're doing a city RFP with a private property owner that there is a negotiated price on that property and or terms. Like we went really creative to bring him into the deal and all that stuff. And I think we could probably do a whole episode on the Madison Theater and like what we stepped into at that side. But in that structure, we went and we did like what is the community need? What are the
Yes.
uses and how do we go? And what was
Yes.
like at the time your firm was looking for a location and so like there was even talks at one point of you
Yes.
guys your old firm
That's right. That's
low
right.
taking a floor. I think it was a floor.
Yeah. It was a floor. Yeah.
Then Caterpillar was expanding their
Yep.
headquarters. At this time, the headquarters was going to be going in Peoria, Illinois. And there was a law firm that had to be relocated because of where they're doing. So they were going to take the top two floors. Of course, law firms taking the top two.
Of
And, you know,
course.
there's talks about like, we want our name on the building and all that. And so we got
Yes.
into different discussions. And it was awesome because it was that big white elephant of a project, right? Everybody, like literally, I think we had what, 40? I don't know how many floors we had, but we had a hotel operator that was going to go in there.
Hmm.
Had base floor restaurants. We had the architectural
Retail.
firm, we had retail, we had the attorney, and I think we looked at like doing like a WeWork place on one of them.
Yep.
Um, and then we had, I think, like 2 floors of residential.
Yeah, I was gonna say we literally had a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
And then we had the mechanical penthouse and like an elevator shaft and this like awesome lobby and like all the amenity spaces that you can think of to like bring it all together.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. I think we had an event center too, like on that
I
little
think so too.
small platform and then an open grass area. So like I was infusing some of the Chicago developments that we had been in.
Yes.
And then you go next to this historic theater right? And it was like rebirthing that and bringing it back. And then the retail sides of the bars on the other side that were really
Yep.
run down. And so it was making, it had almost, I'm trying to think if there's a mix that we didn't have and a use we didn't have in that building. And
I don't think so. I think we had it all.
it morphed. Oh, one of the business, that's the best one. Oh my gosh. Aaron
All the
Schock.
memories are flooding back.
Yeah, right. I'm like, oh my gosh, Aaron Schock was like in office and
Oh,
it was
yes.
talking about having this underground tunnel because it was adjacent to the courthouse,
Yes.
bringing, and the
Yes.
courthouse was coming in and like we need a secured entrance for our people. So like there was a whole different entrance into the parking garage
Yes.
underneath. And oh my God, yeah, we got to show that. Like, we make
We had
coffee
we
there.
had a bridge over the roadway too to link up
Oh
to
my
either
God.
additional parking or I
No,
think
the
it was to
walkway.
parking. It
The
was the walkway,
walkway
the
to the
elevated
Civic Center.
walkway.
Yeah,
Yes.
because the pier, Marquette, had a walkway to
Correct.
the parking garage or to the Civic Center. And we were like, we're
Yes.
going to connect to that. And
Yes.
then there was a hotel on the other side that was like, well, we want to connect to that if you connect to that.
Yes.
So we were kind of going to like Minnesota style it, where everybody
That's
had
exactly where my head
a
was going. Minnesota. All
yes.
these connection pieces. We may
Oh
not
yeah.
have the amount of snow, but boy, we got the architecture for it.
We had the architecture for it. And then of course
Yes.
some council people were like, we want people in the streets. It's like, well, you will get them in the streets, but
Oh,
not like
absolutely. Not all of them, but
not all of
yes.
them. No. And then there was a parking garage. So we did have a parking garage that we actually worked with the county on potentially taking ownership of that from like a condo standpoint. Oh my God. It was, and the coolest thing about it was the tower, the new tower was
Yep.
like technically it was 100% under LOI minus the residential floors. And but for the private property owner killing the deal with wanting too much, and we even offered them to stay in the game. And we went to the mat with our options.
Yes.
It killed everything. I mean, it crumbled,
Crazy.
and you're like, and those are the tough ones to walk away from, where you're just
Mhm.
like, can we just do the city property? Like we already have everything ready.
Seriously.
We just do this.
Yes. Yes.
And I think about that and I'm like, oh my gosh, that was the killer. But in that process, what I loved is learning how to work with you and how to work with a lot of your young architects at Farnsworth. And I think it was the one where like I was always like, I'll take the young ones. Like, don't give me the jade. Don't tell me what I can and can't do. Like those people, those architects I don't work well with. So if you're listening and you're one of those architects that have to do it your way, you should not call me because we won't mesh. I'm just giving that heads up already because how we do our projects is I bring Ellen and or an architect on like when it is early on. Like a lot of times I'll be like, hey, can you meet me here? I want you to check out something. And I'm like, bring clothes appropriately, like the shoes you can get dirty and all these things,
Yes.
right?
Don't
And
wear
I'm
your heels that day.
don't wear your heels that day. And so whether it is that like I think the official term that somebody told me is what we do is a integrated team delivery method where we get everybody up in the project and on site before we've controlled the project. So we have like an LOI or we have an agreement on it. We've controlled it. So now we can start to work on it without risk of losing that opportunity to buy the building. And then we go to work on like what would be here, what would go. And the one thing I love about working with you is you would always be like seeking to understand how this design is going to fit with the pro forma. How is it going to fit with the brand? And so walk me through how you step into those conversations because I think we do it so naturally.
We
I,
do.
I
Yes,
couldn't really
absolutely.
tell you how you probably do it elsewhere. I'm just asking, like, okay, Ellen, I'm thinking this. And one of the pro tips I tell all new developers and business owners is like, if you're hiring someone in your team and you're not listening to them, you're throwing away money, right? And so Ellen knew early on that if she didn't agree with something with me, she could tell me, right? And I wouldn't be
Hmm.
like, freak out. I'd be like, okay, let's talk a little bit more about that, right? And sometimes I'd be like, okay, I see your point of view. Let's incorporate. Sometimes, it'd be like, well, actually, I want to kind of go here with it. And then it would trigger another thought for her and we would build off of each other. And that's, I think, like the blessing of working with you is that you take constructive feedback really well, where I think some architects are like, I'm going to say ass hurt if you don't like their design straight out the gate. And that doesn't make a good project. It just doesn't. So tell me a little bit about how you work with other people.
Well, my thing doesn't change, but other clients maybe not are so open and forthcoming with their thoughts. But
Yeah.
yeah, listen first is always the number one rule. Like listen, listen, listen. I'm glad you brought up brand. I'm always asking people and clients, what's your mission? Why are you here? What are you doing this for? What's this
Mhm.
building going to solve? And it's not just who are we housing? What's your program? What's your square footage? Do you want your office to be this big or this big? It's what are you doing in your office? How is it going to make a difference? Why do you
Yes.
want to come to this building every day? Usually we're doing structures that people could be in for 40 plus hours a week. Like that's home in most cases. I don't do a lot of residential. I love it, but even some architects do somebody's home. Like it matters. Like people are living and breathing in our buildings. And so we have to want to be in them. And the only way to get that successful, I guess, is to listen and figure out why you want to be in them in the first place. So, and transparency and collaboration. I mean, I think architecture is all about collaborating,
Yeah.
usually with each other and our own like kind of team to kind of figure out what the design is. But you as a developer, you have the expertise behind it, you know your performer numbers, you come with so much knowledge to each of your projects that a lot of our clients don't. A lot of our
Right.
clients have never built a building before. They don't know how to do it. They don't even know, the process. And so we're the trusted advisors that's teaching them how to do it and how to get across the finish line. But we just kept working with each other year after year after year. And so we created this relationship. And I knew how much knowledge you could bring to the table as much as how much knowledge I could. And I think that's what opened up to those like really good conversations to
Mhm.
say, oh, that's not how I thought this was going to go. I was going down this path. And then I kid you not, I would like have dreams when I'm working on Katie Kim projects of like, I needed a notebook by my bed because it was like, oh my gosh, like this is what she was thinking. This is what I'm thinking. It like came together right before I was about to fall asleep. And it was like, jot this down. I have to tell her in the morning. And just
Yes.
that collaborative effort and just understanding. Plus, like again, in the developer world, you mentioned it earlier, like you had so many tenants that were already lined up, so many people that were going to be using this facility. Like as much as you have whoever's the client and paying for it, oftentimes you have the end user that wants different things or has a different goal in mind. And so you build a building around everybody,
Yeah.
and not every architect, I think, thinks that way. I think they think, oh, I'm going to build the building that I want. Like I want to be the next Frank Gehry or Zaha Hadid who have their architect stuff. And
Taking a deep breath there.
there's a place and time for that. And
There
believe
is.
me, I also would love to be a star architect, but I find way more joy in knowing that my client and my end users are happy with the success of the project than like knowing, oh, that's an Ellen Spencer building. So,
Yeah. I love that word you said, starchitect, because
oh
a
yeah.
lot of times they do design for like their ego or for their brand, and it's like, I'm not paying for your ego, buddy. Like I'm paying for the project I need that's going to cash flow, and that's what we need to be talking about, right? And I appreciate you saying it because there was a time when we were working on Keller Station, and you
Yes.
mentioned you're like, you keep saying coffee shop. You want a coffee shop here, and I'm like, yeah, I want that to be like the heartbeat and the hub, and like everybody loves coffee. At that point, I had just started drinking coffee. I think like 2 years earlier, maybe a year earlier. So I was like enamored with it. My dream office is always to be above a coffee shop and like a bar. Like for like networking at all times a day. And you have that at Keller Station actually, and more to
We do.
come. But in that, when we were designing out Keller Station, and you asked me that question, and you go, when you say coffee shop, do you mean like, and then you said like Starbucks? And I remember saying like, I kind of died a little bit inside Ellen when you said that, because I want this place to be small, local owned businesses like that don't have the capability to have a place along Knoxville, which is a
Yes.
highly traveled, high traffic count street in the city that connects that downtown with the North Peoria. And there's just not a lot of good vacant property along for small businesses to locate there. And you said, well, I have this great, like, and I don't know how you phrase it. It was very tiptoeish, but it was like the only time I'm like, spit it out, Ellen, let's go. And you're like, well, I know this really great couple. They have a guy, I think because it was the time. It was
It
just,
was a it was a guy, which was so awkward because I had
yeah.
actually gone on a date with him like the few weeks
Yeah, no,
before,
no way. I
which
didn't
is
know
why I
this.
was like,
Okay,
okay,
good.
so I know this gentleman and I know his family, and he's like a really nice guy, but he's not my type. And so we're moving on from that. But I think he would be great for this. And I
I
didn't
would have
know
dug
how
into that
to.
so much. I would have dug so hard into that.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
wait a second.
I
Okay,
avoided that at all costs with you. I was just like, yeah, I
that's
have this
awesome.
great thing.
Oh my God, that's awesome. It's awesome you didn't tell me it throughout the whole project of getting this done
Yes.
until you told me now, right?
Yeah, years later when they're like
Wow, that
the
is
booming
fantastic.
part of Keller Station. Yeah, they started it all. Yeah.
So so it was a guy she knew, and she mentioned at the time now I'm gonna put this in bold of she said it's the best cup of coffee in the city. And I'm like, oh, challenge accepted, right? So I went downtown, got a cup of coffee, and I was like, yeah, this is really good. And so I said, yeah, I'd like to meet him. I think I said like set it up first, but I'm like, I'm gonna go check and get some coffee and then we'll see. Because, everybody has different taste. And now that I didn't know you're dating him, like my brain is blown. I don't know if
We
I
weren't we weren't officially dating. We went on a date, I
a date,
think.
one date, one date.
Yeah.
And Tristan's awesome. I love him. And
It
so,
was Tristan's brother, if this is going on YouTube.
oh, it was Mitch.
Yeah, it was Mitch, but you might have to cut all this out.
I'll let you pre-watch this, but I think that's even better now. That's even better. Um, all family businesses, we love them. And
Yes.
so they came in. You set up the meeting, which was great. So on one hand, I value the fact of that you were a trusted team member that knew where
Yeah,
everything was going. I'm trying to get back on track because now my mind's still blown. But that you were a trusted, team member and you knew where a vision was and you recommended somebody that's in your network, right? And so I think that that's also the power of teams and putting out there what you are doing without like the details of, where somebody can take it away, the project, but like putting out what you're doing. And at that point, I think we had it pretty controlled at that point. And so we brought them in, and I love it because it was Kelly and Tristan in the first meeting, and they thought we were putting them into the warehouse district or going to suggest the warehouse district, right? And I love it because the first meeting with Kelly, she was just like, I'm not going to the warehouse district. We already have a location downtown. And I'm like, well, I wasn't thinking that. But, and then I think it was maybe not that meeting. I think it was the next meeting where we left our office, which was in Peoria Heights at the time, and we
hmm
drove to Keller Station. And I met him there. That was it. I met him there, I think the next day, because I said, it's this new opportunity. Nobody knows about it yet. You got to keep it confidential. And when I go into, as Charles makes me say, potentially beautiful buildings, um, it can be rough. They can be
Yeah.
really rough. And I'll see it. Our team will put a picture of what CXT Coffee looked like before. And I remember when I was going, I was like setting up back-to-back showings because we were still getting the building unlocked and everything.
Yeah.
And they came, the whole family, Kelly, Tristan, Mitch, and they were walking through. And I was like, okay, here's where from what you were telling me, right? Again, listening to your client, listening to what the vibe they want to do and where they want to go with their business. Because we're not talking about
Exactly.
the next location. We're talking about the next level and beyond. Like, how are you expanding and moving into this?
Yes.
And when did that, it was so interesting. I'm like, you could go here. This would limit you in this side and this, but then you could go over here. So I want to show everybody all options. And then because you have those visions in your head, and that's why I think like as corny as it sounds, like Pinterest boards are great because I'm like, you can
Yes.
tell me what
Yes.
you want in that picture. I like this. I don't like that. I like this. And so you can
Yes.
start to get it.
Vision. A vision board.
Yeah, vision board. That's maybe better. And
Yes.
then it was like an hour and a half because I kind of thought like, okay, I probably will go long-winded. Like, okay, and I remember the next people were coming, and I said, I'm like, I got to go to this, but like, because we kept going back and forth to the spaces and looking at them, and there was shit piled so high in those buildings. So I'm
Oh
like,
my God.
I'm
And like
prefacing, I'm like, you got to have
trees,
vision.
vegetation, and smells and grease. And yeah, it was
Oh,
a
the
little bit of
lead-based paint.
everything.
Oh, you remember that
Yep.
lead-based paint on the wall? Ugh. And so they stayed and looked. They actually stayed through, I think, three different showings that night, or two. They were like the third. And after the end, after everybody's gone, they're like, which spaces does everybody else want? And I'm like, well, I can't really tell you that, you know. And they came to the spot that they wanted now, and they're like, we don't know how to step into this. This is the first expansion we've done, and we just launched the coffee shop and we're renting. And so we talked about the professional service side that we do, which I know is different than some developers you work with because we can help them structure their business for
Yes.
to be bankable,
Yes.
plus step into the floor plan. And that's why I love when we work together. The floor plan really reflects the P&L. It
Yes.
really comes into like, we got to have this space for revenue generation. We got to have this space for getting, prepped and everything.
Yes.
And And I love that. I love that. So, oh my gosh. Okay, I know we can talk a lot more. So we're gonna have
Oh yeah, absolutely. We should have a
Ellen back
whole
on.
series on Keller Station alone. Yeah. At
Yeah.
Mitch and I's date, we were talking about his family's coffee business and how like Tristan's gone to Colombia and like learned all these things. And Colombia may not be the right country, but I'm pretty sure
It
they
was
like
Columbia.
go, he
Columbia.
like
Yep.
specifically goes and like tries all the beans and stuff. And they did have a very, very small location in downtown Peoria. And their whole dream was to like not just be a coffee shop, but like grind their own beans and like be like 30/30 at a different location in Peoria. And so knowing that, it was so easy to say, you're looking for a coffee shop that isn't Starbucks, it's this one because it's not just the small coffee shop, but it's like they needed the storage, they needed the pallet movement, they needed all of this like programmed into their space. And existing space was just filled with junk and trucks and cars. And it was like, okay, let's make this into something. It was awesome. I loved it.
So, did you write off your dinner as a business expense?
No.
Maybe it's a question for Mitch. No, yeah, that's but see, that's where I love, and when Ellen said like a lot of times creativity would spark right before you go to bed. Like we haven't even talked about when we went on vacations during our relationship that was actively working together. Because like literally
Vacations.
quote unquote vacation, I would send pictures to Ellen and Nick. I would be like, you guys love this. Let's go with this. I love that. Don't like this. And I'd get like, aren't you supposed to be on vacation? I'm like, yes. And I'm in a candy store. Like, look at all this architecture. And I think that's the fun. I think that's why everybody should travel personally too, is to get those experiences because you remember how you felt in
Yeah,
spaces.
exactly.
And that's, I think, the beauty of creating and developing. And like you mentioned, you listened. I think that's step number one. Like, listen, shut up, don't think about what you're saying next. Like, truly listen, paint that mental picture of what this space looks like. And you're not taking orders, right? Because when you said something like, I don't want to know how much square foot you think you need, because that's, usually that's cute, right? Like, you don't need that much square foot, or you don't need it for this.
That, that's my expertise. We'll figure that out eventually.
Yes.
Yes.
But
I don't need
listening,
you to tell me to do that. Although I don't know how many times we've counted ceiling tiles in client meetings to give people spatial awareness.
oh,
Because again,
100%.
that is where my expertise comes into play, not my clients.
Oh, yeah. So pro tip on that, if you're listening, if you're looking at the ceiling and you have a square ceiling tile, that's usually a 2 foot by 2 foot tile. If you have a rectangle, it's usually a 2 foot by 4 foot, so you can literally go like 4 foot, 4 foot, on there.
Yes,
And people just are amazed. It's kind of like the magic trick, right? We're like, okay, this
it
room is
is.
10 by 10. Okay. It's like, what? And so they're really great, but it's listening, right, to what they want. How are they going to use this space? How do they want to show up? And I think it'd be really interesting, especially now when we're talking about not, I mean, we've been talking about for a while, bringing everybody back to work, but then also how our workspace is changing the amenities and
Mhm.
really how's AI even changing office spaces. So I'd love to bring you back for that. This is really an intro call to Ellen, and she's coming back on again and all things. But I love that because there's so many great stories and your knowledge and
Absolutely.
how you bring to the table of those. That's my ding. I guess I gotta go. But the knowledge you bring to the table and how you work through your clients' thought process and their growth. Like even you're on a date. Now that I can remember, you're on a date and you're like,
I'm always on, Katie.
analyzing.
I'm
You're always
always
on.
on.
Word. Like I tell you, I'm always on too. People are talking like I can't, don't say nobody's asking your opinion, Katie. Like I'm like, it was Liz I had on a couple episodes ago, and we were at a retreat, Go Abundance Women, and we're at the last day. We're like about to catch all of our flights out, and she's talking about this, historical project. So of course I'm like, ding, hello, what's going on? And she was already like almost done with it. She was supposed to be getting her occupancy in a couple weeks.
Hmm.
And I'm kind of like, okay. And I go, I gotta ask a couple questions because I can't help myself. And I like asked her a couple questions and she wasn't taking full advantage of the tax credits. And so I told her a couple tips and tricks. And I'm like, I gotta go. See you later. Like call me if you have any questions, right? Because we're in an accountability group. And literally, I didn't know this, but I heard afterwards, her face was like just white. And she was just like flushed, just sitting here like, oh my gosh. And my friend Erica like, Liz, are you okay? Like, what's going on? And Erica's so funny because she's like most of my friends, right? They're eating at the same time and enjoying life. And
Yes.
And so she goes, she just made me $350,000. And Erica's like, I'm sorry, what? Like, I should have been listening to that conversation. And later it turned out she calculated it was like $379,000. And again, she was already halfway. I mean, like, again, she was about ready to go for occupancy. And so to me, it's those little bit of conversations that you have when you listen and you know where somebody's coming from, and it helps you not
Yes.
just put the design part, but also put that
Yes.
capital stack. And that's one of the things I want to dig into as we teased a little bit today is that every bit of that floor plan should also have a capital stack like representation and a reason why it's on the floor plan on that. So, all right.
Yes.
All right, we're gonna cut it here, guys. We will bring Ellen back. So, Ellen, thank you very much for sharing your time and for everything. And I'm excited. We'll set up a time. We're gonna bring you back.
Sounds good. Happy to be here.
Awesome. Thanks. What I love most about this conversation with Ellen is that it proves the truth. Design and development only work when there's alignment, not ego. The right architect doesn't just draw your vision, they protect it. They translate what's in your head into something that performs on paper and in real life. So if you're stepping into your next project, whether it's your first property or your fifth, remember this: collaboration is the capital that multiplies your results. And if this episode hit home for you, share it with another woman who's leading her next big move. Because when more of us build with intention and intelligence, we all rise together. This is Real Talk with Katie Kim. Until next time, build smarter, lead stronger, and always design your growth with purpose. Let's go. Hey friend, before you go, I want to say this. If real estate development has been on your heart or on your mind, we've built lanes to help you walk it out wherever you're starting from. Just exploring? Start out with our free live masterclass. Ready to do the reps and build the strategy? Join the Developer 101 Bootcamp. Already active and need to level up? Step into the Real Estate Development Academy. You don't have to figure this out alone. We can teach you, we guide you, and we walk with you. So head over to katiekim.com and book a call with our team today, and let's figure out the best first or next step for you. You're not behind, you're not too late, and you're definitely not too early. You're right on time. Let's go. The information in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not legal advice. It's not financial advice. It's not investment advice. Real estate development, like any investment, carries risk. Before you make decisions, you should always consult a licensed professional, your attorney, your CPA, or your financial advisor, to name a few, to make sure you're making the right choice for your situation. I'm here to share insights and strategy, but you're responsible for your own decisions, and each situation is unique. So make sure you contact your professional team to give you your specific guidance for your specific case, as each real estate development's different and unique and has its own challenges and opportunities.